Imagine a symbol of progress, a marvel of engineering that connects to communities. Now, imagine a hidden flaw, a ticking time bomb built into its very structure. On a quiet morning, that flaw almost tore it all down. This is the chilling story of a bridge collapse that came within minutes of becoming a national tragedy, a near miss that exposed a shocking mix of human error, ignored warnings, and a system so broken it almost cost countless lives. What went wrong on that day, and what are the terrifying lessons we have yet to learn? The year was 1990, the location, Chicago, Illinois. It was a bustling, ordinary morning on the Dan Ryan Expressway, one of the nation's busiest and most vital arteries. Thousands of commuters were on their way to work, their cars a constant river of steel flowing across a series of large, overhanging bridges. One of these bridges, a simple but critical structure, carried a local street over the expressway. It was a small but essential part of the city's massive infrastructure. A bridge that had served its purpose for decades without a second thought from the millions of people who drove beneath it. But beneath its surface, a battle was being fought. Decades of heavy traffic, constant vibrations, and the slow, relentless march of corrosion had taken their toll. The bridge was aging, and its steel and concrete were beginning to show the first signs of fatigue. It was a silent, invisible decay that no one was paying attention to. The city's Department of Transportation had a system for inspecting its bridges, but it was a system built on paperwork and bureaucracy, not on proactive maintenance. The bridge's health was a line item in a report, not a priority. On the morning of April 12th, an engineer from a private firm was doing a routine inspection of the bridge's underbelly. He wasn't looking for anything specific, just checking off boxes on a long list of safety measures. What he discovered, however, was a shocking and immediate danger. He found a massive crack in one of the bridge's main support beams. It wasn't just a hairline fracture, it was a deep, jagged fissure that was threatening the structural integrity of the entire bridge. The engineer knew immediately that the situation was critical. The beam was holding on by a thread. The terrifying reality was that the crack had likely been there for weeks or even months, hidden from view. The weight of the morning rush hour traffic was putting immense stress on the weakened structure. Every passing truck and every traffic vibration was bringing it one step closer to a catastrophic failure. The engineer knew he had to act fast. He made a series of frantic calls to the authorities, his voice filled with a sense of urgency. He was not just reporting a safety hazard. He was reporting a ticking time bomb. The authorities responded with a sense of disbelief and a chilling slowness. They sent a team to the site to confirm the report, a procedural step that cost precious minutes. The engineer, seeing that his warning wasn't being treated with the urgency it deserved, decided to take a desperate measure. He called the local police department and demanded that they shut down the expressway immediately. He made it clear that a collapse was imminent and that a refusal to act would have a fatal consequence.
For a few tense minutes, the traffic continued to flow, a river of humanity blissfully unaware of the looming disaster. The police, finally convinced by the engineer's frantic pleas, began to close off the expressway just as the first structural signs of the collapse began to appear. The bridge began to groan and buckle. The metal strained and twisted, a chilling symphony of a structure at its breaking point. Just as the last cars were cleared from beneath it, the bridge gave way. It didn't just collapse, it imploded, a massive cascade of steel and concrete crashing down onto the expressway below. It was a horrifying sight. The very structure that had carried millions of people for decades was now a pile of rubble. And the most terrifying part, the time of the collapse was minutes after the expressway was shut down. If the engineer had not found that crack, if he had not been so persistent in his warnings, if the police had hesitated for just a few more minutes, the result would have been an unimaginable tragedy, a national horror that would have cost hundreds of lives. The horrifying crash of steel and concrete was a chilling echo of a tragedy that didn't happen. The bridge's collapse, though catastrophic in its own right, was a far cry from the mass casualty event it could have been. The immediate aftermath was a scene of chaos and relief. The expressway was a mess of twisted metal and concrete, but miraculously, no one was killed. The media and the public hailed the engineer and the police for their quick thinking. But a deeper, more troubling question began to emerge. How could a bridge so central to a major city S infrastructure have been on the verge of collapse without anyone knowing? The investigation into the collapse revealed a shocking truth. The Dan Ryan Expressway bridges were part of a massive, interconnected system of aging infrastructure, and their condition had been a source of concern for years. The bridge that collapsed had been inspected just a year earlier, and the report had noted signs of corrosion and fatigue. But the report, a simple piece of paper in a bureaucratic system, had been filed away. It was a warning that was not ignored. It was a warning that was never read by the right people. The investigation revealed a profound failure in communication. The engineers who inspected the bridges were not the same people who were responsible for funding their repairs. The information about the bridge's deteriorating condition was a line item on a budget request, not a direct warning to the officials who had the power to act. The system was designed to be a series of disconnected departments, each with its own responsibilities and its own priorities. The result was a system where a critical piece of information could be lost in the shuffle. A single warning could be buried under a mountain of paperwork. The bridge collapse was not an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a larger, systemic problem. The nation's infrastructure was aging, and the money for its upkeep was not keeping pace. The government was focused on building new highways and new bridges, while the old ones were left to slowly decay. The people of America were driving over bridges and underpasses that were a generation old, and no one was thinking about the hidden flaws that were quietly building up beneath them. The lessons of the Dan Ryan collapse weren't just about bureaucracy, they were about human arrogance. We had built a world that was so efficient and so technologically advanced that we believed our nations were infallible. We assumed that our bridges, our roads, and our buildings were immune to the slow, relentless march of time. The engineers who built the bridges in the 1960s had designed them to last, but they had not designed them to be neglected. The collapse of the bridge was a brutal reminder that a single, ignored warning could lead to a catastrophic failure. It was a reminder that our greatest creations are also our most vulnerable. The bridge was a testament to our ingenuity, but its collapse was a testament to our complacency. It was a moment that forced us to confront a terrifying question: what other hidden flaws were lurking in our infrastructure? What other ticking time bombs were we driving over every day? The incident was over, but the questions it raised were just beginning to be asked. What lessons could a nation learn from a disaster that didn't happen? The chilling silence that followed the collapse was a stark reminder of what could have been. The bridge's twisted wreckage was not just a pile of rubble. It was a memorial to a tragedy that was narrowly averted. The collapse of the Dan Ryan Expressway bridge became a pivotal moment in American history, forcing a national conversation about a hidden crisis, the slow, silent decay of our country's aging infrastructure. The investigation that followed the collapse revealed a terrifying truth. The bridge was not an isolated case. It was a symptom of a systemic failure. The city's bridge inspection system was a paperwork process, not a proactive maintenance program. Inspectors had noted the bridge's deteriorating condition, but those warnings were lost in a bureaucratic maze of departments and budgets. The people with the power to approve funding for repairs never saw the urgent warnings. The system was designed to be disconnected, and the result was a catastrophic failure of communication. The collapse also exposed a deeper, more human flaw: a culture of complacency. For decades, America had taken its infrastructure for granted. We built a world of concrete and steel, assuming it would last forever. The engineers and city officials had become too comfortable, too reliant on a system that was built on good intentions but lacked the critical oversight needed to prevent a disaster. The story of the Dan Ryan Bridge collapse is a challenge for the future. It's a chilling reminder that our greatest creations are also our most vulnerable. The near miss was a brutal lesson in the importance of listening to warnings, of a system that needs to prioritize human life over bureaucratic process, and a reminder that our greatest strength lies in our ability to learn from our mistakes. We can choose to forget this event, to assume that we've learned all the lessons, or we can choose to remember the people who were saved by a few minutes of warning, and the lessons they were forced to learn the hard way. If you found this story compelling, I have a request for you. This video is just one part of a bigger picture. The story of our world is full of moments when everything almost changed. I've put together a video that goes into another one of these events. A nuclear crisis that was far closer to disaster than we ever imagined. And if you want to see more of these stories that tell the days when everything almost changed, please hit the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.